It's time for Watts on Wealth Radio with Barry Watts and your host, Ralph Hipp.
How much money does the average person in Missouri spend in retirement? More importantly, how much will you spend? Today, that question takes on a whole new twist. And full disclosure, we are in a government shutdown, folks. They're not working on a Sunday, so we're pretty safe to say it's still shut down. And for those rascals in Washington, we didn't want them to mess up our show and reach an agreement now on Sunday morning, so they're following up with that. So this is Ralph Hipp along with J. Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation. We're going to unload his perspective on the current government shutdown here on this Sunday episode of Watts on Wealth. So Barry, welcome in, and how are you, sir? We'll start with the big picture in a minute, but what's the picture where you are?
Well, the picture where I am, I'm in a very small room. As you know, our studios are structured that way. So I'm in a small, dark room with lights on me because it's also what we use for our television studio. So that's what it looks like when we're producing this show. But that's all good and well. I'm fine. It's all good. I'm happy camper.
Barry, okay, thanks for the description. We know where you are. And start with the big picture now. What should our listeners think about what's happening right now?
Well, Ralph, what I think that our listeners should be doing right now is they should be getting up on Sunday morning and going to church. And when they get there, they should get down on their knees and thank God that the federal government has stopped functioning, at least at the non-essential levels. So in my view, this is almost a great thing. It's certainly not a bad thing. And let me just address it from a couple of points of view here. First of all, we say that the non-essential people have been laid off or furloughed or whatever. Well, here's my question, Ralph. Why do we have people working for the government if they aren't essential? What do you mean non-essential people?
Good question.
I just can't even get my brain around that we've allowed government to grow into this bloated thing where we have people that we're saying, well, we don't really need them. Well, then why are they there in the first place? You know, over at the Wealth Care Corporation at Battlefield and 65, we've got 20 people working over there, and every one of them is essential. And they've all got work to do. And if any of them become non-essential, you know what we do? We let them go. So this whole idea of we're letting the non-essential workers go just breaks my brain. I don't have a place for that. It doesn't fit very well. Now, when you think about the government shutdown, I've got you a Billy Long story. Might be interesting. You know, Billy Long was our congressman here in the Missouri 7th District for, I believe, 12 years that he served in Congress. And so it was about 15 years ago that Billy was running, and he announced he was running. He showed up in my office. And, of course, the reason he showed up in my office is he was wanting a campaign contribution because that's how you get the money together to run. And so I made a campaign contribution and all was well, but I'm standing there talking to him and I'm like, Billy, why do you want to do this? And one of the things he said to me is, well, what are we going to do? Are we just going to let it totally degrade and fall apart? We have to have some smart people go up there to fix the thing. And he said, I'm going to go up there and vote to shut it down. Well, it did shut down during the time that Billy was serving. Now, this is, I think, the first shutdown during the time that Eric Burleson is our congressman. Not that either of them have very much control over that. But the idea of shutting her down isn't such a bad idea. We were doing just fine in the United States before we had such a big government. So what's going on right now? Well, the Democrats and the Republicans in the various houses of Congress, the two houses, are negotiating, so to speak. They're at a stalemate. The Republicans have already passed a continuing resolution that would keep things functioning, and the Democrats in the Senate refused to vote for it unless the GOP agreed to spend additional money providing health care to illegal aliens. I saw a meme this week, Ralph, that was kind of funny. You know, who invented the word meme? I wonder what it means.
And what does it? What does it mean? Yeah.
Anyway,
it's like
this meme.
It's like me. It's spelled me, but
yeah. Well, this meme said that it had a picture of the Capitol and it said, "We're going to stop working because we can't agree on how to spend the imaginary money we don't have." Just think about that for a moment. We're going to stop working because we can't agree on how to spend the imaginary money we don't have. So anyway, the government shut down. Since 1976, there have been 20 shutdowns, the longest lasting 35 days. And that is good news, Ralph. It's good news if you were expecting the FBI or ICE to come arrest you today, because that's probably not going to happen. They've stopped working. Air traffic control is still flying, though. They're still in their towers, so you can still fly airplanes. Post office still delivering mail. Of course, you realize they're funded separately out of stamp sales, essentially. Although they've kind of stopped delivering out in Rogersville. We have a heck of a mess out there with our postal service, getting it done and getting it done on time and just with stuff just disappearing. Social Security is still processing checks. But if you're waiting on the government to change anything or adjust anything for you or process anything or issue a passport, well, then that's probably not going to happen until they get back to work. And if your experience is like mine, it probably won't happen for a long time then. We've got some extra special perspective on that today because I've got a special guest in the studio with me, Ralph. Jeremy Zickefoose, one of our retirement designers at WealthCare,
All right,
is here as our guest host today. And so, Jeremy, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here again.
You're getting to be almost a regular.
Heck yeah.
Well, we're glad you're here.
we enjoy it. We enjoy the three of us sitting by the Cracker Barrel on Sunday morning and just chatting about things. And
hey, Ralph, did you know that there used to be a show in the Springfield market called Cracker Barrel on Sunday morning?
Yes,
okay.
That's right.
I just didn't know if
kind
you
of
knew
taking
that.
their place.
It was hosted by Don Paul was the guy's name. And when I was a kid, boy, Cracker Barrel was a big deal. Now, we'd all sit tuned into that on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
We didn't have much to do.
I was going to say, I'm glad, friends, you're tuning in to this new version of Cracker Barrel, the Barry Watts Show, Watts on Wealth with Jeremy Zickefoose, and I'm Ralph Hipp, the first anchorman of KSPR, now on the radio every Sunday with Barry. Barry's number to have your own conversation, get together with him as soon as you can at 417-200-3500. Barry and Jeremy, the government shutdown, is it really going to physically affect our retirement accounts, or does the shutdown mostly affect the way that the markets respond to that emotional political news? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Ralph, I think it is going to affect, but it's going to be a short-term interim, not long-term effect. It's going to be what we might call, it's really high profile. You know, it's all over the news that the government is shut down, but it's going to be low impact. High profile, but low impact. Makes a lot of headlines, but it rarely changes the financial outcomes. The markets, you know, they usually dip a little before the shutdown because of the fear of the unknown, and usually about 10%. Now, we didn't see that this particular time. Once the shutdown starts, though, the market often reacts in a different way, doesn't decline very much. And in fact, about half of the time, the markets actually rise during the shutdown. So once again, shut her down. I'm fine with that. I agree with Congressman Long.
Yeah. And even recently, you know, towards the end of this week, we were up in the market.
And guys, what do you think will happen to the markets when the shutdown is all over with? Any crystal ball predictions?
Yeah, I do. And, you know, my crystal ball is broken, but history is all we have to look at, Ralph. And history says something that encourages us, really. When we've had shutdowns in the past that lasted 10 or more days, well, the S&P 500 over the next 12 months after a 10-day shutdown posted a gain of nearly 19%. So imagine if we get a 19% addition on top of what's already been a good year so far for us, a decent year. What that tells me is don't be afraid of a shutdown. Just be patient, let it all process itself, and I think it probably is highly likely to go well for you.
Once again, Barry's number, how does the government shutdown affect you? Get with Barry in your particular situation. Barry's number, 417-200-3500, 200-3500, and even text that number to Barry today. Gentlemen, what do you have as advice for Southwest Missouri retirees and those who are getting ready to retire 2025 into 2026?
Well, as it relates to the shutdown, what advice do we have? First, go fishing. Take your grandkids to Silver Dollar City. Don't let any of this noise affect you. Stay calm, stick to your plan. Don't be emotional about this. It's important to always review your situation, but don't react to it. And this is a perfect time to sit down with your advisor. I trust you have an advisor. If you don't have an advisor, you need one, and we'd be happy to step in and fill that role for you at the WealthCare Corporation. You need to look at your income plan. Be sure that it is on pace. You need to confirm that you've got the right amount of protected principal. Basically, you need to focus on the things that you can control, and that certainly isn't Washington, D.C. We talked last week about how you can't control the Fed. This week, you can't control the Congress and the government shutdown, but you can control your spending, your saving, the way you're investing, the allocations you're using. You can actually even control your taxes, Ralph. So people just need to stick to the things that they can control. In fact, if Congress had been sticking to its business, what it's supposed to control, this would not have happened, but we have no control over them. So what you can control is being sure that you have a retirement plan built to withstand shocks. And that means that you stress test your portfolio. We've got software, Ralph, that we actually set your retirement plan up, show it over in the next 30 or 40 years till you're 100 years old.
Fantastic.
And then but we throw some shock into it. And we say, well, what would happen if the government shut down? What would happen if the stock market ran backwards? What would happen if you had a long-term care event? What would happen if your spouse died? And so stress test your portfolio. And then the final thing I would mention, Ralph, is just being sure you've got a withdrawal strategy that's really tax smart. You need to know what your taxes are every year and know what you can do to change that number and make it lower. And then you need to take the appropriate actions to do it now. And one of the things that we'll be talking about in the next couple of segments, Jeremy's got a tax case that came up that we worked on this week that's going to be really interesting just to get an evaluation of. So there's a lot that can be done and can make a big difference. You know, taxes are at the very center of what we do at the Wealth Care Corporation, because if you don't get the taxes right, nothing else matters.
What Barry just said, that is the core element of what we're talking about on the show, Watts on Wealth. That is what Barry does. It all begins with taxes and goes from there. Friends, these government shutdowns, they come and go. They generally last 35 to 40 days. Your retirement could last 20 to 30 years. Now, don't let Congress decide your retirement future. If you've saved at least $250,000 or more for retirement, don't let the politics decide your future. So call Barry's team. 417-200-3500, 200-3500 in the 417 area code for Barry's free retirement review with the team. They'll test your portfolio against market shocks, show you how to build reliable income streams. Oh, that is so critical, and create a tax-smart plan to weather all this noise. So his number, you know it by heart, 417-200-3500. Do not let the drama going on in Washington knock your retirement off track. So call that number, text it today. Take back control of your financial future with Barry Watts and the team at the Wealth Care Corporation. We're going to take a break, as Barry said, and we'll be back to talk more about taxes here on Watts on Wealth. I'm Ralph Hipp with Barry Watts and Jeremy Zickefoose, and we'll return in just a moment here. Don't go away.
Explore how Barry Watts can support your financial aspirations. Set a consultation by texting VISIT to 417-200-3500. Discover the possibilities at 417-200-3500 with a simple VISIT text.
Do you think you'll pay lower taxes in retirement? Really? Many people go into retirement assuming that, but end up paying as much, if not more, in taxes than when they were working. How taxes can affect your retirement is one of the chapters in Watts on Wealth, the latest book written by local tax strategist and retirement designer Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation. Barry takes you through the many tax considerations you should make before you retire. To get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, call 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. The book is full of actionable retirement tips and strategies Barry has gathered from his more than 30-year career in helping families just like yours retire successfully. Get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, now by calling 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. Advisory services provided through Wealthcare Asset Management, LLC.
For a more confident retirement journey, get Barry Watts' Wealth Care Kit. Discover strategies addressing life's biggest retirement obstacles. Request yours by texting KIT to 417-200-3500. Again, that's KIT to 417-200-3500.
Welcome back to Watts on Wealth, the Sunday morning radio show with Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation of Springfield. $1 million IRAs. Does it sound great? Barry, it does till you realize that's not all yours. Every withdrawal will cause you to pay taxes. So let's get into taxes and tax strategies, helping us avoid those pains.
Well, Ralph, I'm happy to talk about that. It's one of my favorite topics because so few people know about taxes, how taxes even work ultimately, and what things they can do to save. Most people are focused on saving, accumulating, putting more money into their retirement plans. And that's fine as long as you're working. But when you reach what we call the top of Mount Retirement and you start down the other side, then your focus is not on saving and accumulating. Your focus begins to be on withdrawing. And when you start withdrawing, every penny that you withdraw from your retirement accounts is taxed. And it's taxed most generally as ordinary income, not at the favored capital gains rates that most investors are accustomed to. So you get a little higher tax when you start withdrawing out of those IRA accounts. And what it really becomes, Ralph, is a trap. We call it a ticking tax time bomb. Boom! It's ready to go off, and it's going to go off in a big way on many people. Other people, it'll just be damaging, but I mean, does it really matter whether you got blown up with a pound of TNT or a ton of TNT? Either one of them blows you up. And so we want to help people avoid that bomb. And Jeremy, you've got a story of a client that in a case you've been working on that kind of addresses that. So take us away and tell us that story.
Yeah, well, I had a gentleman come in, and one of the big things that we hear from people all the time is, well, when they have tax questions, who do they go to, Barry?
Well, you go to your CPA generally because everybody thinks the CPA is the tax expert.
Exactly. And most of the time, CPAs, we see them being very reactive to taxes. They're not exactly doing that proactive work where they're trying to help avoid paying some taxes in the future. They're just adding up all the numbers from last year.
Well, that's because they're looking in the rearview mirror
Exactly.
at what happened last year instead of looking out the front windshield at what's coming up. Now, here at WealthCare, we have got a CPA on our staff who used to work for the IRS.
Yes.
And so he has, since he came to work for us, learned to look out the front windshield at the things that are coming. It's why he came to us, as he recognized the value in that sort of approach.
Oh, exactly. And thank goodness we turned him to the good side there.
There you go.
But we had this gentleman, not only, it was a weird case. Most of the time, if you go ask a CPA about this, well, they don't know the strategies to look forward to help avoid some of those taxations. However, in this case, his CPA actually did recommend some advice.
Oh, really? Well,
Yeah.
so that's a little bit unusual. A lot of times they'll say, well, just go buy another truck or spend some more money, get a Section 179 deduction.
Exactly.
That doesn't work for people who aren't running businesses.
Exactly. Oh, and this gentleman's retired, but he was given the advice to do a Roth conversion. And don't get me wrong, I think Roth conversions can be fantastic, but the CPA had recommended about a $500,000 Roth conversion last year.
$500,000 1 year.
One year.
So that's $500,000 he's going to pay income on, going to pay tax on $500,000 in 1 year.
In 1 year.
And before that, he was making what, 100 and some thousand bucks a year?
Oh, it was in the 22 or 24% tax bracket most of the time.
So not, wow. So $500,000 in extra income to be taxed.
This shot him into the 35% tax bracket. And don't forget the 5% for the state of Missouri. And he ended up overpaying taxes by about $53,000 because of this bad recommendation.
So he overpaid taxes by $53,000 because he followed what his CPA told him to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, folks, that shouldn't happen. And I'm going to tell you the reason I think it happened is because the CPA was only thinking in a focused way about a Roth conversion, and they weren't thinking about the big global picture. Tax strategy is about the global picture. How does your income from your retirement plan affect your Social Security? How does it affect the taxation of your Social Security? How does it affect what you're paying for Medicare? How does it jump you up in the tax brackets when you have to start taking the required minimum distribution? The taxes are pervasive throughout your retirement plan. Your entire retirement are affected by them. And the CPA just missed the point.
Yeah, we overshot it there. And so there's a nuanced dance to do it. You don't want to do it all at one time. You want to do a little bit at a time to keep you in a reasonable tax bracket. Because like Barry mentioned, if you start getting higher and higher into these tax brackets, well, not only are you paying more in taxes voluntarily, but it can also cause you to have a lower Social Security check. Even though, you might be making more, well, you're keeping less because you're having to give it back to the government. So it's not about what you make, it's about what you keep. And taxes are at the center of that.
I was just thinking about that guy, and he paid $53,000, I think you said, in extra taxes.
Yes, sir.
And I'm imagining that some of our listeners don't have $500,000 to convert. There's not much risk of that happening. So let's take it another way, and let's say they just converted $50,000, and let's say they had to pay $5,000 extra in tax.
Yeah.
Well, now there's a place where that might be an okay thing, but the point is you want to do it in a surgical way, very precisely. You don't want to suddenly discover, oh, oops, it ran me to a higher tax bracket. Oops, it cost me a lot more tax than I thought it was going to.
And that's the thing. It was a surprise. If you're going to do it, you want to make sure you're intentional, that you know about it, and that you are prepared to pay that tax bill.
That's exactly right. You know, a day's going to come, Jeremy, when taxes are not going to be as low as they are right now. Did you know taxes are low right now?
Oh, they are historically low, Barry.
They are actually. Taxes are on sale.
Yes, they
and
are.
when things are on sale, what do? You go buy some of it.
Buy more.
Yeah, you gather it up when it's on sale. And I'm telling you that this is an awfully good season to be paying some tax. You're going to have to pay it. It's embedded in your IRA. You know, Ralph mentioned at the top of the segment, having $1 million IRA, and isn't that great? Well, the problem is you don't have $1 million IRA.
How much do you have?
You got a $650,000 or $700,000 IRA. The rest of it belongs to the IRS. They're just allowing you to store it in your account until they demand it from you. I think that you ought to break up with that business partner. You ought to have a meeting with the IRS and say, I'm going to divorce you. I know a guy who wrote a book called Divorce the IRS. I think this would be a great time to divorce the IRS. Say, look, today's the day. You take your portion. I'm going to take my portion, and we're not going to be in business together anymore. Now, sometimes, Jeremy, we manage these divorces with the IRS. And sometimes it's not a one-time divorce. Sometimes we get a little bit of divorce this year, a little bit of divorce next year, a little bit of divorce the next year. But we build a strategy that will ultimately get you divorced from the IRS so that you can get yourself to a position where you're paying no more tax on your retirement accounts. And that is critically important.
Exactly.
It's the only way to come down the mountain.
It is. And, you know, it's interesting. You know, we have the government shutdown, but, you know, there's a big prominent person in the government right now that has talked about how they're going to help pay for all this, excessive spending and where they're going to get all this money for the federal debt. And do you know who that was, Barry?
I might, but who are you talking about?
I'm talking about Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
And she said, you know, not to worry about all this excessive spending. She said in an interview that, we still have all those IRAs that we haven't taxed yet.
Yeah. I don't
Great.
want anything out of Nancy's mouth.
No.
I'm just not interested.
So
let's send her back to California and tell her to stay. And let's tell her to keep her nephew, Gavin Newsom, keep him in California. Why don't we just get California off and float it out in the ocean and let it be?
Give it to Canada, maybe.
Well, you know, I've got some friends in California who favor this idea of the state of Jefferson because these people live up in Northern California. They're farmers and ranchers. And when you go out there, it's really interesting, you know, because we think of California as all being blondes on the beach in bikinis. Notice how there's 3 Bs, blondes, beach, bikinis.
Yeah.
These people up in Northern California are ranchers. They're driving F-150 pickup trucks, wearing jeans and boots. They think like us. And what they want to do is they just want to cut off the big cities, San Francisco, LA, even San Diego. They want to ship that out. Let that be California. And they have proposed the whole rest of the state becomes the state of Jefferson.
Interesting. I've not heard of that.
Well, that's what they're saying. Now, I don't think it's going to happen, but if I were them, I'd be getting the heck out. I've got a friend out there who's very wealthy, makes a tremendous amount of money. He's paying a 13% tax to California, plus he's paying 37% to the federal government.
Wow.
And I've said to him, why don't you leave? Well, I was born here. My mama was born here. My mama before her was born here. I'm going to die here. My kids are born here. Our people are buried here. He just can't get over it.
So he's paying 50% in taxes?
Yeah, over 50% in tax.
Oh, my goodness.
And boy, that is quite a tax to have good weather.
Yeah, that's insane.
It is good weather out there.
Yeah. But, you know, when they're, government's not working and they're still spending money, well, they're trying to have their eyes on your retirement accounts.
You know, guys, I was envisioning Speaker Mike Johnson calling Nancy Pelosi. Nancy, you're absolutely right. We are pulling the taxes out of your IRA. You're absolutely right about that. I wonder how much she's got socked away with. You know, friends, you wouldn't go to your CPA and ask about tax strategy. They're tax preparers. But Barry, a lot of people have even retirement advisors that don't talk about taxes very much. And we know your history of studying taxes and implementing that into the plan, a big part of it. And why do you spend so much time on taxes when a lot of other advisors don't do that?
Well, Ralph, taxes are at the very center of your retirement. If you don't get the taxes right, nothing else matters.
Right.
And the unfortunate part is that most advisors are not qualified to talk tax. They have not studied tax. They do not have credentials in tax. I do. If you have a tax problem, I can actually represent you before the IRS. Now, I won't do that because that's not what I do. But I focus entirely on just helping you design tax strategies. Now, our CPA here in the office, who can also represent you before the IRS, only CPAs, lawyers, and people like me can make that representation. He will help you if that's what you need. But the point is, most advisors aren't qualified to talk about tax. So when you start asking very in-depth tax questions, what they'll say is, well, you better go talk to your CPA about that. I just don't know for sure. And so one of the other reasons I think that they aren't trained and people don't realize the value, or big brokerage firms don't realize the value in training their advisors, is if they introduce tax strategies. and people actually prepaid some tax now and got it out of their system, well, it would reduce the size of their account temporarily, and that would reduce the amount of fees that they're paying. So I just have a theory that that's why it's not being brought up, why advisors aren't even being taught these topics. And then I think there's a third theory, Ralph, and it's this. Tax is hard. Figuring this out is hard. It's a big headache. It's a big math problem. Did you like big math problems when you were in school? Probably not. So the tax work is not fun, but it's very rewarding. In fact, last Friday, I had a person who's thinking about selling his business. And when he sells his business, he's going to have about $8 million in capital gains on the sale of his business. He's going to owe about $1.6 million in taxes. I've never even met this guy yet. I was just on the phone with him. And he's like, Barry, is there anything you can do to help me? Well, yes, I can help you avoid paying taxes of $1.6 million on $8 million worth of capital gains. We initially defer them, but then the deferral turns into an elimination of those taxes. So pretty big deal. If you're in the same shoes, it doesn't have to be $8 million. It could be $800,000 or even $80,000. And you're facing capital gains taxes you don't want to, then you need to call us at the Wealth Care Corporation, because we can help you erase those taxes. And that's just more money for you, more money for your family, more money for your kids. It's more ice cream for your grandkids. And let's be sure you can make that happen.
That's right. This is all amazing, folks, the way this works. And if taxes are causing you pain, Barry and the team at Springfield's Wealth Care Corporation can sure help you out. They can only help if you pick up the phone. You can pick up the phone and text today. It's 417-200-3500, or call first thing in the morning. Leave a message that says, I need tax help, Barry. One of those skilled advisors at the Wealth Care Corporation will call you back first thing Monday to see how they can help you. So dial or text 417-200-3500 right now. We are, when you watch sports, they have the halftime report. We're at the halftime report part of the show. Guys, we're going to take a break here. This is Ralph Hipp with Barry and Jeremy. You're listening to Watts on Wealth, the radio show, and we'll return in just a few moments here.
Unsure of how market volatility might impact your investments? Speak with Barry Watts, who can offer strategies tailored to withstand market fluctuations. Just text VISIT to 417-200-3500 to meet with Barry Watts today. Again, text VISIT to 417-200-3500.
Do you think you'll pay lower taxes in retirement? Really? Many people go into retirement assuming that, but end up paying as much, if not more, in taxes than when they were working. How taxes can affect your retirement is one of the chapters in Watts on Wealth, the latest book written by local tax strategist and retirement designer Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation. Barry takes you through the many tax considerations you should make before you retire. To get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, call 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. The book is full of actionable retirement tips and strategies Barry has gathered from his more than 30-year career in helping families just like yours retire successfully. Get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, now by calling 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. Advisory services provided through Wealthcare Asset Management, LLC.
Prepare for retirement with key insights from Barry Watts' Wealth Care Kit. Get your essential guide by texting KIT to 417-200-3500 and start planning today. That's 417-200-3500, KIT.
We are back with the second half of Barry Watts, the Watts on Wealth radio show, and along with Jeremy Zickefoose, this is Ralph Hipp. Barry, let's get back to it and talk about retirement income planning. Where do we begin on that phase?
Well, retirement income planning is the foundational step in preparing for retirement. People think it's all about accumulating, and accumulating is really important. But if you'll think about it, having $2 or $3 or $10 million all accumulated up in your retirement account is absolutely worthless unless you know how to turn that capital into income. And we're fortunate because here on the show today, we've got an expert at retirement income planning. He's a retirement designer here at the Wealth Care Corporation. That's Jeremy Zickefoose, who you have become accustomed to hearing on our show. Jeremy, when somebody needs to start thinking about how to turn their retirement capital into income, tell us where you begin. How do you develop a retirement income plan?
Oh, well, the very first step that we want to look at is to develop something that we call your sitting on the porch number. This is the amount of money that you need to have deposited into your bank account every single month to pay all the normal bills and do all the things that you want to do in retirement so that if you wanted to, you could just sit on the porch and relax. And a lot of times, Barry, people have issues sometimes coming up with how much they want, or need in retirement as a sitting on the porch number.
Isn't that interesting? So if they can't tell you what their sitting on the porch number is, and I've seen this.
Oh, yeah.
They go, people get they stare at you like a calf staring at a new gate. I know you're a city boy. You don't get that. But my guys who are out there listening on farms right now, they know exactly how a calf stares at a new gate. So they understood what I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
So these people, when you ask the question, how much sitting on the porch money do you need? They just look at you like you're dumb.
Mm.
How do you help them navigate that?
Well, there's a couple ways you can back your way into that, actually. And one of the ways is, let's look at your most recent tax return, based on if you're still working, how much you earned. All right, at the end of each month, was your savings account growing? Was it shrinking? Or are you basically spending everything that you're bringing in? And so if last year you made $50,000 and, you spent $50,000, well, then guess what your sitting on the porch number is?
About $50,000.
Yes, sir.
How about that?
Yep.
So that's an easy place to start. Is just look at how much your paycheck is deposited into your checking account every 2 weeks or whatever.
Yes, sir.
And you can kind of figure out how much money you're spending if you're not saving any of that.
Exactly. And then there are some other things you want to factor in when we create this written and optimized income plan. One of the first things is, Social Security. How much are you going to be getting? Do you even qualify? What is maybe the best way for you to qualify? There's a lot of questions that can go there. But also, are you a teacher or a government worker? Do you have a pension? Have some consistent income coming out in retirement? And we can also calculate that in as well. How much do you need from your savings each month? We need to calculate, if you only have $2,000 in your Social Security income every single month, but you need to live on $5,000.
$3,000. I know the answer.
Yeah,
$3,000.
we're going to need $3,000.
So if my sitting on the porch number is $5,000, I've got $2,000 from Social Security, and I don't have a pension.
Well, where's it going to come from?
Then $3,000 is going to have to come from my investments every month.
Yep, your investments, your savings, your annuities, your anything else that you might have, and we can factor in all of the inflation. So don't worry about factoring in inflation in your sitting on the porch number. We'll do that for you.
So then what I've got to do is I've got to figure out how to turn that IRA or 401k, those retirement assets, how to turn them into a paycheck. How do I turn my assets into a paycheck? That is my challenge.
Yeah, the challenge is to turn into a paycheck that you can map out and see month by month, year by year, where to be getting the money from, how much, in what order, and you want to make sure that it lasts you ideally all the way to age 100.
Something would be interesting is if you could get a little extra money you weren't counting on. And I want to tell a story now about a client who came in.
Okay.
He's got plenty of money, but he's not getting any income out of it.
How is he not getting income out of it?
Well, he owns $5 million in O'Reilly automotive stock.
Okay.
Now, congratulations to him. He's doing pretty good.
That's pretty good.
He just bought it a long time ago. O'Reilly has done super well for everybody. That's not a suggestion you should go out and buy it. Maybe the train's left the station. I don't know. We have a lot of clients with it. We use it sometimes, but that's not my point. This guy had $5 million in O'Reilly stock. And here's something that you may not know. When somebody's got $5 million in O'Reilly stock, and he, by the way, is 90, he's not interested in selling that stock because it's brought him thus far. And secondly, he doesn't want to pay the capital gains tax because the capital gains tax on $5 million is going to be about $1 million. So he didn't want to pay the capital gains tax. But I discovered there's a way he can turn that into income and still get income out of it without selling his O'Reilly stock.
How's that possible?
You can't do it. It's not just with O'Reilly. You can do this with Walmart stock. You don't have to sell that to turn it into income. In fact, there's a strategy. I'm not going to go into the nuts and bolts of the strategy. It's far too complex here. But on the O'Reilly stock, you could actually take $500,000 worth of O'Reilly and you could produce about $250,000 a year in income from that stock without ever having to sell the stock and experience the capital gain. So these are really important strategies that can really be helpful to people, but you've got to know about them. You got to know they exist. You got to know how to use them. And, is there anybody else in Southwest Missouri who knows these strategies? I don't know, but I don't ever hear anybody talking about them. I kind of think they're only available here at the Wealth Care Corporation. And so if you want to know how to use those strategies, you've got to call us at Wealth Care, and we'll point you in the right direction.
And that number is 417-200-3500. If you love the way Barry's talking about all that stock value and how to get income from it, give Barry a call. Leave a message today or text the word visit. Once again, it's 417-200-3500. Guys, let me shift gears to the lower interest rates. The Fed did lower them, we discussed on a previous show, by 25 basis points, a quarter of a point. And we are expecting a couple more interest rate drops before Christmas. So this really magnifies how important our Social Security checks are. They'll still be coming even during the government shutdown. That's coming from a separate pool. So, Barry, especially right now in quarter four, what can we do in Southwest Missouri to make the best decisions about Social Security?
Well, we're really fortunate here on the show today, Ralph, because we have a Social Security strategist with us. Jeremy's job at the Wealth Care Corporation is twofold. First of all, he's a retirement designer helping people to make all the decisions they make to prepare and shift transition into retirement. But we ask him to become a subject matter expert. We have subject matter experts on every topic. On tax strategy, I'm the subject matter expert. But on tax compliance, Phil, our CPA, is the subject matter expert. On Medicare, Matt is the subject matter expert. And the Social Security subject matter expert is actually Jeremy, and he's here on the show. So I'm going to let Jeremy take that question and run with it.
Well, the best decision you could be making right now is to be running your numbers. If you have not yet claimed your Social Security benefit, I know a lot of people right now are just very emotional about, that they hear all these things from, Social Security Trust Fund is running out here in the next, 5 or so years. And now we have a government shutdown. Should I just claim my check so that I get something out of it before it might be too, it might be all gone? And there's no right answer to that, because there are, 81 different age combinations and hundreds of different mathematical equations to be running.
How are there 81 different age combinations? I mean, I've only got, so if I'm 60 and I live to be 100, there's only 40 different age combinations.
We're talking about a couple.
Oh, well, so if I'm 60 and she's 60, that's at least 80. You said there's 81. I'm guessing there's something I'm missing there, but that's okay. You don't have to find the one.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways of, does it make sense for you to be claiming your own benefit, or do you have the opportunity to claim a spousal benefit? Would that be of benefit to you? Do you have an ex-spouse that you can claim off of? Because there are some people, they don't know that, but even if you are divorced, you can actually still claim off of an ex-spouse if their benefit's higher than yours.
Wouldn't that be awesome? There's your opportunity to just stick it to your ex, take a little of their Social Security away.
Well, actually, no, it actually does not affect their Social Security, so it's not like you're taking it away from them.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't hurt them. So, don't be,
But if it's more beneficial for you to take it off of them than it is to take it off of your current spouse, then that'd be a way to do it. Now, how many years do you have to have been married to claim off the ex-spouse?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of exceptions and kind of rules there. But if you were married for at least 10 years to another spouse, you can possibly qualify to receive their benefit instead of your own if it is higher.
So if your first spouse was a brain surgeon and your second spouse was a rock and roller, probably the brain surgeon's Social Security amount is going to be more. And if you were married to him for 10 years, even though you love your rock and roller, you may want to claim on your brain surgeon spouse.
Well, possibly. It depends on when you married the rock and roller, actually. They have all these different rules. But if you got married before the age of 60 to that next spouse, well, unfortunately, you're then not able to claim off of the brain surgeon.
Really?
Yeah.
Hey, Ralph?
Yeah.
Do you know why I gave Jeremy this task of becoming the subject matter expert? Because it hurts my brain. I need a brain surgeon.
Oh, that's a lot in there, man. That's a lot in there.
Man, there's just so many details. All right, real quickly, because we're coming to the end of the segment here. You had a case in recent weeks where you had some grandparents who had adopted a child.
Yeah.
Tell us that story a little bit and tell us about how you were able to help them.
Well, they had adopted a child and they were really trying to figure out.
It was their grandchild.
Their grandchild, yes. They had become the legal custodians, and they were trying to figure out when to claim Social Security and if that mattered. But one of the big things that they didn't know about was, since they are of claiming age and they are now legal guardians of a minor child, the child can also receive a Social Security benefit off of them. So not only by claiming now and running all those numbers can they get their own benefit, but they can actually help get a benefit for their granddaughter. And, that was a really exciting thing to go through because now they're going to be able to start packing away money, about $250,000 before she reaches the age 18. That's a very great college fund.
$250,000 they didn't know they could claim.
No, they had no idea that was money left on the table. And that's one of the big important things that we like to help people with here at the Wealth Care Corporation is don't leave money on the table because only about 4% of people get it right when it comes to Social Security. So don't be one of the rest of the 96% of us.
Absolutely. Friends, whether it's not wanting your retirement eaten up in taxes, Roth integrations, protecting your heirs from unnecessary taxes, how do you reduce your taxes? Get your questions ready. Get a list together and then call that number, 417-200-3500 to Barry and Matt and Jeremy and the whole team at the Wealth Care Corporation. Also, as we go to the break here, I want to mention Barry's book. It is called Watts on Wealth. You can buy it on Amazon if you'd like to. You could shell out about $19 for that, but Barry will ship you a free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book. And just text that word BOOK, text book to that same number, 417-200-3500. We'll see in a moment what you're writing into Barry as we get to our mail-in questions, and we'll get to that right after we get to this.
Curious about securing your financial future? Barry Watts brings expertise to your retirement plans. Arrange a meeting by texting VISIT to 417-200-3500. Again, it's VISIT to 417-200-3500.
Imagine for a moment that an intense storm is pounding your house. Will your roof leak? Will the siding peel away? Will your basement flood? If your house is properly built and maintained, you'll be fine. But what about your 401k or your investments? The stock market has had a pretty good run the last few years, but is its current turmoil making you feel uneasy? Are you confident your portfolio is built to weather a financial storm? Now may be a great time to get a second opinion on your retirement plan. Call Barry Watts and the team at Wealth Care at 417-200-3500 now. They'll examine your portfolio and show you if your investments are in need of some weatherproofing. Call Barry Watts and the team at Wealth Care today at 417-200-3500 to get your no-obligation second opinion. Don't let your retirement get caught in the rain. Call 417-200-3500. Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk.
Market volatility can be daunting, but having a strategy in place can provide stability amidst the uncertainty. Consult with us to learn about approaches that address market ups and downs. Call 417-200-3500 to set an appointment and secure your financial footing. Again, just call 417-200-3500.
Back now for our final segment, and to Barry and Jeremy and Matt and the whole crew, the most fun part of our show. We take your questions from our listeners, and the first one, guys, comes from Sheila in Springfield. Sheila's writing, I'm worried about getting sick or too old to take care of myself. How do I know if I've saved enough to pay big medical bills? Barry, where do we start?
I think the place that Sheila should start is she needs to have a line item for healthcare in her retirement budget.
Okay.
Now, I'm sure Sheila has a retirement budget. I mean, you wouldn't walk into retirement without a budget, would you? Okay, got to talk to you about that. Because retirement is for big boys and girls who are responsible adults. And a part of being a responsible adult is budgeting for your retirement. That's figuring out. You're sitting on the porch number, as Jeremy was talking about a moment ago, figuring out your sources of income. And so one of the things that we would do for her, if she was concerned about getting sick or old, is when we build the retirement income plan, and that's a part of the process. That's actually step number one in our 6 steps to retirement confidence. When we build a retirement income plan, one of the things that we do is we build in a stress test for long-term care. And we say, what if she gets in a long-term care situation? And we punch the button and say, oh, here's what long-term care does to you. You run out of money or you don't run out of money. There's money left for your spouse after you die, or there isn't money left for your spouse. So that's the first step for Sheila. Secondly, she needs to look into Medicare and know whether or not she's going to use an Advantage plan or whether she's going to use a Medicare supplement plan. She needs to consider her long-term care options and whether traditional long-term care insurance or maybe a hybrid works, or if she's got enough money, she may just self-fund it herself. I'll tell you one of the things that we really like, I'm using a lot, I personally use it, Ralph, is I actually use a life insurance policy that has an accelerated death benefit on it, that if I get into a long-term care situation, instead of waiting for me to die to pay out my life insurance, will pay me while I'm still living. And that money can be used to pay for my long-term care, and it's all tax-free. So that's a fabulous solution, and those are some suggestions I'd have for Sheila.
All righty. Well, we have the now and the then of retirement planning, and we go to Aurora and Nancy asking you, Barry, I can't keep up with these RMDs, required minimum distributions. When do I have to take those?
Well, it depends on how old you are, Nancy. If you were born after 1960, you don't have to start taking required minimum distributions for your retirement plan, from your retirement plan, until age 75. But if you were born prior to 1960, then you have to start taking it at age 73. And the reason for this is the IRS just simply requires you to start making withdrawals from your tax-deferred accounts to make sure that Uncle Sam gets paid his taxes. He looks at you and he says, hey, you're going to die one of these days, and you're going to die with money in that account that hadn't had the taxes paid, and I want you to pay me the taxes, so by George, you better start paying them. And right now, the law says at 73 or 75 is when you have to start paying that. Now, the key is to plan required minimum distributions into your income strategy. So when we do this for a client planning their income strategy, we actually look at when their distributions are going to kick in. And then we're asking this question, Ralph. We're saying when those RMD, required minimum distributions, kick in, what's it going to do to the tax situation? Is it going to drive the taxes higher? Because if it is, it may be better to take some voluntary distributions from the IRA right now, not required, just some distributions voluntary, that you pay the taxes on, get it out of your system, and you can stay in the same tax bracket while you're doing that now, and that might keep it from driving you into a higher tax bracket later. So the big topic here, Nancy, of RMDs is simply something that we do for our clients at the Wealth Care Corporation, and hopefully your advisor is doing that for you too. If they aren't, you're probably not getting the care that you need. And so I would say you should call us at Wealth Care, and we will take care of making sure that all of your retirement distributions are calculated in advance so you know what's required of you, and we'll make those distributions for you every year.
All right, on to Bert from Buffalo, Missouri, writing and saying, longevity is not something that runs in our family, Barry. Can I spend more early and still be safe if I live longer than expected, if, he beats the odds on the family DNA there?
Well, now, so let's tear that question back apart. I don't think I'm going to live very long, so I'd like to spend a whole lot more money early. And I just want to know, if I spend a whole lot more money early, will it still be okay if I live to be 100? So really, I almost can't understand the question because it defies logic. No, Bert, it won't be okay. If you spend all the money early, it won't be okay. Now let's talk about longevity doesn't work in my family. So my great-grandfather on my dad's side, my paternal great-grandfather died in his, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40s. He died when my grandfather was born. My grandfather died at age 65. So now let's look at my dad. My dad's looking at his granddad, died in his 30s or 40s. His dad died at 65. What's my dad think? Well, I don't have much life. Dad's 82 and doing fine. The world has changed a lot. So when you say longevity doesn't run in your family, well, in my dad's family, it's given him at least an extra 17 years, and it wouldn't surprise me if we got 27 years out of that. And so the point is, just because the last generation didn't live as long doesn't mean that you won't live as long, Bert. So you need to plan on living long. Now, there's some ways that you can go about this. I would recommend that you set up a bucket strategy. And the way the bucket strategy works is you figure out what your sitting on the porch number is going to be for retirement starting in year one. And whatever that number is, we build a retirement income plan for it. And you could, if you wanted to, say, well, in the first 10 years of retirement, I'm going to travel, but then I don't plan on traveling after about 10 years. So we'll take the travel expense out. It would actually reduce your sitting on the porch number starting in year number 11. So by bucketing what you're going to spend for and adding some expense in the early years that doesn't exist in the latter years, well, it may help you work that out. And it would allow you to reserve some backup income just in case when you get past what we call your go-go years. Ralph, there's 3 different kinds of years. There's the go-go, the slow-go, and the no-go years. So I think that would be a real helpful process, but you notice it all began with a retirement income plan.
Yeah, and Barry, to kind of piggyback off that, we are living a lot longer than we, used to. The average male today lives to 83, and the average female lives to 86. And also, did you know, Barry, so right now between you and Kelly, there's a 25% chance that one of you will live to 97.
97. It'll be Kel, baby. I'm trying to stock it all up for Kel, so there's plenty for her. Think about that. The average, though. The average male lives to 83. Yeah. Okay. Average female, 86. Well, all that means is the person in the middle. When we say average, we're talking about the person in the middle.
Correct.
So that means for everybody who died 10 years younger at 73, there's somebody who lives to 93.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how many people have you known died through the years in their 20s, 30s, or 40s? Lots of them. Well, that means that there are going to be people who live not only past their 80s into their 90s, but past 90s into their 100s. I don't know where that falls off out there. But the point is, we live a lot longer than we used to. And you just told me I've got a plan on Kelly spending it at least all the way to age 97.
Potentially, there's 25% chance.
Well,
Wow.
that's a big enough risk that I think we need to take care of it. So the way we do this is we build a retirement income plan. And we say if there's a 25% chance, then we need to build that in and say, well, what happens if Kelly lives longer than I anticipated? Because the last thing I want to happen is us to plan on, well, we got enough money to last till 90 and think that's probably good enough. And then if Kel lives to be 97, even if I'm not there, especially if I'm not there to take care of her and help her, because I've always dealt with the money at our place, go figure. Well, then that's not a very good shape to leave her in. And I want to say to you men, you have a responsibility to care for your wife. I know that in most cases, not all, but in many cases at least, it's the husband who kind of drives the financial bus in many families, not all of them. If you're the bus driver in the family, you better be sure that you're driving the bus in a way that takes care of her when you're not here. It is critically, critically important. And I'm not going to allow you to avoid that responsibility. You just need to know if you show up at WealthCare and we have the conversation, I'm probably going to hold your feet to that fire, because when you married her and said you'd take care of her, that was a part of the taking care of her even after you're not there. And the whole solution is driven around a retirement income plan.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, if you want to beat the odds and not take any chances, discuss this topic with Barry and Matt and Jeremy. It's 417-200-3500. Text the word visit today. 417-200-3500 to Barry and the team. We have time for one more question, gentlemen. And Donita down in Clever, Missouri. I always thought that was the coolest name for a Missouri town. Clever, Missouri. Our neighbor's son wants to sell us some life insurance. My husband says no. Would it be bad to have some extra coverage?
Well,
and you're helping the neighbor's son.
I don't know, because this is all about the neighbor's son, really. Is your husband right when he says you don't need it? I don't know. There's a reasonable chance he might be right. Let me explain to you what's happened. Your neighbor's son has graduated college. He's gone to work for one of the big life insurance companies. And the first thing they do is on the first day is they have him write down a list of 100 people that they know. And those 100 people are the first 100 people they talk to, and they go and see them, and some of them take pity on them and buy a life insurance policy. 6 months later, the neighbor's kid is out of the life insurance business, but now the company has a new relationship with you, and that's the way they build their life insurance company. So that's just a little tip so you'll understand why the neighbor's kid called in the first place. Whether you need it, I can't say. Have no idea. Life insurance can be an important tool. I personally have a lot of life insurance. And it's very valuable to me for a couple of reasons. I'm accumulating money inside my life insurance policies, tax-free. And when I take that money out to live on it someday, it's a tax-free retirement plan for me. And it'll also pay for a long-term care for me or chronic illness at home if I get into that kind of situation. So if you put the right kind of life insurance policy in place, it can be really helpful. Danita, I'm sorry, I don't know if you need one or not. But if you want to come see us at the WealthCare Corporation, I'll be happy to help you figure that out.
And by golly, we were right. Our time is up. So thanks for all those terrific questions, and thanks for your great answers, Barry. Barry and Matt Dean, Jeremy Zickefoose, and the whole team at the WealthCare Corporation, and give them a call. Once again, as I mentioned, even though it's Sunday, head to church. Barry said at the beginning, get down on your knees right now and pray. And hope you'll join us again next Sunday for our show. Text the word visit to 417-200-3500 or call and leave a message, and hope you can get with Barry and the team really soon. And I enjoy getting together with you guys. I thought it was a great show.
Hey, it was fun to be with you, Ralph. We'll see you again next week right here on Watts on Wealth.
We'll do it. Make a note to tune in, and we'll hope you'll hear us again next Sunday right here. Bye for now.
Thank you for stopping by Watts on Wealth. If you would like Barry and his team to help you make a plan to get to and through retirement, or would simply like a second opinion on your current plan, give us a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417 200 3500. And join us again next week for Watts on Wealth.
WealthCare Corporation provides tax strategy, tax compliance, accounting, and insurance services through its affiliate American Tax Strategies, LLC. Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Past performance never guarantees future results. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for information and entertainment purposes only and should not be used as the basis for personal financial decisions without first consulting a qualified advisor. The information and opinions you've heard are believed reliable but cannot be guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness.